Hey everyone, JL here and welcome back to Bridge the Divide. Today, I've got 10 questions coming in from Jermaine over at the Apologetics Comedy channel, pun intended, The Deity of Christ. And you know me, I love answering questions, so let's dive in and see what he has for us.
Do you want eternal life?
Easy answer, no. The very idea of consciously existing in an eternal static state, blissfully bereft of any capacity for reason and thought, and thus my very identity, is pretty much the worst version of a hell that I could conceive of.
Does the God of the Bible exist, yes or no?
And the answer is no. The God of the Bible doesn't exist because it is definitionally a logical contradiction. Logical contradictions cannot exist, so we know that a God, defined as such, doesn't exist because it cannot exist.
Do you believe someone or something put us on this earth to live and die?
No, and there is no evidence to indicate or imply such a thing. All the available evidence sufficiently indicates that our species, like every other species on the planet, are emergent products of the system.
Why? Why are we here? Why is the universe here?
If you're talking about humans, our species exists as a result of the multitude of selection pressures that acted upon our parent species. But if you're talking about the universe itself, as a logical and parsimonious inference from the fact that something does exist and that something cannot come from the philosophical void, I hold that it has always existed and will always exist. But if you're looking for some kind of agential intentionality behind our existence, there is no evidence to indicate such a thing exists, and nor does it have to.
Do you believe in free will?
I personally hold that the answer to that question is currently undeterminable. There is evidence for and against both free will and determinism. The problem question is it possible that our perception of having free will is itself determined? And because it is within the realm of logical possibility for the answer to that question to be yes, we can't just hand wave it away when we're coming to a conclusion. Ultimately, we currently have no idea which one of those answers is correct, and it is very possible that this is a question that may never be answered. And you know what? That's okay too.
Is the reason why you don't believe in God because you can't see him and there's no evidence?
Well, just not seeing a god, no, that wouldn't logically follow. But you are correct in that there is no evidence that such an entity exists. And when I say no evidence, what I mean by that is that any evidence that has thus far been presented for the god requires one to first beg the question of the existence of the god in order for the thing being pointed at to be evidence of its existence. Remove that begging the question fallacy, and thus far everything that's been presented is completely indistinguishable from the natural world. So the god is either completely unfalsifiable or it doesn't exist. Either way, there is no rational justification to believe that it does, which is precisely why all theists are technically agnostics, they can only appeal to faith for their justification, and all their arguments are logically fallacious.
So if you saw the God of the Bible, would you turn from your sin and become a Christian?
I see, like most apologists, you haven't actually read your holy book, and the answer to this is certainly not. I could never in good conscience ever get behind any kind of an entity that would ever think that genocide, rape, slavery, incest, and human sacrifice were ever necessary means to accomplish anything. Especially when nothing exists external of the god to dictate to it that those things are the only logically possible responses, and the entity is defined as having the ability to do anything more moral. The natural disasters that unjustly claim the lives of millions of people around the planet don't necessarily have to exist. Making every living organism on the planet capable of surviving via photosynthesis would certainly eliminate all of the unnecessary suffering we observe due to predation. Hell, just pulling a Thanos and snapping everything out of existence would have been far more moral than drowning every living thing on the planet. And by your own light, your God would have known this. So you choosing to follow such an entity and doing so without question really says more about your character than it does about mine.
Has modern science destroyed your relationship with God?
No, actually it didn't. I was one of those theists that was able to reconcile my scientific understanding with my belief that a God entity existed. Any intellectually honest person can recognize that the two things are not mutually exclusive. I was, however, forced to drop the God belief when I recognized that it was utterly irrational to hold it.
What was eternal and uncreated to bring us into existence from non-existence?
Nothing. Neither scientists nor atheists hold that something came from nothing. As I stated before, that would be a logical contradiction. However, you do hold that your God literally created everything that is not itself out of the philosophical void. So this is really just you projecting your worldview sans a God onto us, and then asking us to provide for you an equivalent emotionally satisfactory answer which is just intellectually dishonest. The reality is, while there is an origin point to the observability for our physical universe that we refer to by the misnomer the Big Bang, there is zero evidence to indicate that the physical universe itself as a system ever had a beginning. By your own light, just because it can't be observed or quantified does not logically entail that it doesn't exist. And that goes for the universe as well. And there is no logical nor physical contradiction in that being the case.
Aren't you tired of running, ripping and running, fighting those addictions, drinking, smoking, all kind of stuff, fornication? This is not just a free-for-all party. You don't come to this earth and do whatever you want to do and then get away with it. It doesn't work that. Aren't you tired, man?
Firstly, no. All of those things that you just mentioned are themselves a part of living, and I am in no way tired of living my amazing life. But also, you would have to be an unbridled narcissist to think for even a second that your various opinions on the things that you mentioned are held equivalently by anyone else. Just because you personally don't like them or you personally find no value or entertainment in them is irrelevant to us. And whatever the individual's opinions might be holds no bearing on the atheist position. Which means your final question here is really just an appeal to emotion, which ultimately tells me that you need a God because you yourself are extremely dissatisfied with existence, so you're projecting your subjective stances onto other people as though they're true in order to drag them down to your level. It's the exact same strategy of emotional manipulation that Ray Comfort uses when he's running his grift out on the Huntington Beach boardwalk. So if you personally need to believe in a God entity that doesn't exist just to get you through the day, I won't fault you for that, but that issue is on you. Just do us all a favor and stop trying to pull the rest of us down with you just to mitigate your existential dread and loneliness. Be safe, be excellent to each other. I'll see you next time.